Welcome to the November 2023 meeting of the Philadelphia Association for Critical Thinking. Most of you know us well. You know that we support science, reason, critical thinking, and the thorough investigation of claims using the scientific method. Some information on our Zoom meeting. We will have a Q&A at the end. There is a chat icon at the bottom of your screen. You can communicate with each other, but you can also type your questions in there, and I will be reading them off after our speaker is finished. Please, if you're typing in a question, please put a capital Q at the beginning of it so I can find it easily in the chat. Today's speaker is Happie Foshee. Brian grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, graduated from Penn State, and started his career as a magician soon after. FACT began in 1995 and has hosted 200 plus speakers over the years. Brian is our first magician. Brian, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So what I want to do for you guys today is kind of talk about how I see the world as a magician and how that differs, and how my explanation of some of the things that magicians do can actually help you guys to see the world a little bit differently and be able to decipher something that's real from something that's not, or that's deceptive. So that's the goal. Just want to make sure everybody has their microphones turned off. I don't care if video on or off, you know, it's fine, just so long as you have your microphones off from background noise. But I want to start by talking about misdirection. Misdirection is the most common word that I think lay people being non-magicians, know about magic. It involves like leading an audience's attention away from the crucial action or a secret move by exploiting the limited capacity of, and I'm not saying I don't have that too, but of all of our human attention, our brains. So we figure out how to get around that. For example, if a magician, if I were to take a $50, so I'm holding it here so you can see it like this, right? And if I take a $50 and I take it like this and just rub it a little bit until it starts to warm up, it starts to heat up just a little bit, you can go like that. That is, as a magician, called a French drop, okay? The thing is that, here, let me tilt this down a little bit. I'm going to be back and forth a little bit, tilting the camera down. The coin is actually still there. You just can't see it. You have to tap on the back of the hand and it comes right back. So obviously we know the coin was there the whole time, somewhere, not where you could see it, but it was present. And that is misdirection, all right? Misdirection is commonly used in scams, in real world situations. I was trying to think of something really good, and I came up with, there was a documentary about the Silk Road on Netflix, which was not the original, but a website that was selling drugs all over the world, millions of transactions, illegal transactions on the dark web. And the FBI was tracking the guy. When they finally figured out who he was, they still had a serious problem. The problem was that as he was sitting at his computer working, if they tried to bust in and arrest him, he could press one button and it was all gone and they wouldn't be able to prove anything. So what they decided to do was use misdirection in order to catch him. So he would use public Wi-Fi instead of, being able to track him to himself. That's how they figured out where he was. He was sitting in a library, helping out to conduct the transactions, doing everything that he needed to do to run this huge enterprise, biggest drug enterprise there ever was. And what they did was they planted a couple in the background who would start arguing with each other. So they were behind him. So he's sitting on his laptop. They had an undercover FBI agent across the table from him. And the couple behind him, as soon as they started to argue and he turned and looked, they grabbed his laptop, slid it across the table. It was away from him and they could make the bust. That is misdirection. Pure and simple. That's how it goes. And there's a million different ways that I could show you here. I'll do another one with the coin just for fun of how misdirection works. Okay, so same as before. If I was to trying to find an angle where the light isn't washing the coin out too bad, but if I were to take the coin like this, right, and then rub it like this, it appears just like last time as though it disappeared, right? I can even show you my hands back and forth like that it's not there, and then tap on the back of my hand and it's back. Now, I'll show you the basics of this. This is something that you can do yourselves just for fun. This move that I used is called a French drop, okay? And this is what it looks like. Hold on, let me turn this light away just a little bit here. Okay, so this is what it looks like. When I reach across and I pick up that coin like this, it looks very normal. It looks natural. It looks like the coin was picked up, okay? But I never picked it up. It's here in my hand right here. If you want to learn how to do this, first you put your hand out like somebody's going to give you something. You put your fingers underneath, your thumb on top like this. You put your other hand out, and all you have to do is completely cover that coin before you do the secret move. This is really technical, very difficult. You ready? That's it. If you can do that, you can do this. So it's right there like that. When I reach across and pretend to pick it up, now when you're watching this, you know where it is. Your brain shifts to seeing the deception instead of where you're supposed to look, because now you know. So if I actually really pick up the coin, you're probably still thinking it was in this hand. So and you know, I see people try to learn it and they make mistakes. They go like this, okay? Well, the coin isn't magnetic and neither is your hand. It's not going to stick to your hand, right? And the same thing happens with misdirection in the real world. You have to make sure that it is legitimate, that it is something that is really going to deceive people. And that's why as magicians, we work on that so much. And you know, crooks and little if you go usually internationally, you're traveling somewhere, and they will use this, make a distraction somewhere else so they can do something to you, even if it's just pickpocketing, where they're going to bump into you on one side as they're stealing something out of your pocket from the other. It's all misdirection. But misdirection isn't the only way that we as magicians are able to deceive people. Pattern recognition is a big one. Pattern recognition means that I can show you something, and because it looks like I'm doing the same thing multiple times, you believe I'm doing the same thing multiple times. The French drop is a great example too. If I was going to actually take this coin out of my hand and put it into the other one, I wouldn't want to first show it to you and say, okay, so I'm going to pick it up like this, right? I would want to actually hold it the same way. I'll hold it like this, and I'll pick up the coin and do whatever I need to do with it, so that when I actually do the French drop, you don't see it happen. That is pattern recognition. And just because magic is fun, I'll give you another example. Okay. So you can see here, see the coin in my hand here like this. Okay, yeah, it's good. And I'll tap the coin 3 times and it's going to disappear right out of my hand. Okay, here it goes. 1, 2, 3. Whoops, it was the pen. Actually, that's okay. The pen, it went behind my knee. Oh, wait, wrong knee. There it is. All right, so all of that is pattern recognition. If I was really going to just tap the coin with the pen, there's no need for my hand to go as far as it did. 1, 2, 3. I can tap it right here, right? But I didn't do that. I went 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happened to the pen because I can't reveal too much of the magic. But the point of it is that even though it seems quite obvious what happened to it, it's deceptive. It's pattern recognition, doing it that way. I believe a Ponzi scheme would be the same type of thing, where you see somebody invest money and then they get paid, and then somebody invests money and then they get paid. So you invest money and it's gone. That would be the same type of pattern recognition. Phishing scams that use a really official looking website or very official looking email. They'll even use the email address. Like I was speaking with my mother the other day, and she had gotten a notice from UPS that her package was not going to be delivered. There was an amount due that it could be delivered, and the email was from do not reply at ups.com. Well, that's easy. They just, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to reply or expect a reply from that email. But the link was the deceptive part. So pattern recognition is used in that regard as well. Also in social media, they will present to you only the posts from people that you know that lean towards the side that they want to direct you. So political elections, all right, if they're getting paid by one political side or another in order to cause people to vote for that individual, then they are simply going to make it so the algorithm only shows you positive posts from your friends about that candidate. And that is going to sway a lot of people and can absolutely manipulate the end result of an election, all right, or Brexit or something like that. There's also another one, which is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is, people tend to notice and remember information that confirms their existing belief. So magicians might exploit that bias by subtly reinforcing false assumptions, leading the audience to make incorrect conclusions, okay? There are a lot of magic tricks that use that. Incorrect recall of a trick is what I hear very frequently. Matter of fact, if there's somebody here who you've got a trick in your mind, you're like, I saw this magician do this one time, and it was the most amazing trick I've ever seen. If you could explain it in about 20 seconds, can unmute yourself for a second and tell us. Is there anybody who's got a story like that? I saw a magician do XYZ. And it's possible that the
Brian, we have unmuting turned off.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, then I'll give you, I myself will give you one of my favorite examples. I have people say to me all the time, they say, oh man, I saw a magician. He did this trick where he just had me think of a card. And then he revealed it, like it was, the only one facing the opposite direction in the deck or something like that. And I know what trick they're talking about, and I know that's not how it went down. So it happens all the time, and they will swear that's exactly what they saw. And when I even recall the correct way that the trick went, and I tell them, do you remember telling him the card? No, I did not tell him the card. 100%, they're absolutely wrong. But 100%, that is exactly what they remember and what they believe. We do this intentionally to people. All right, so an example might be if I were to flip through, and I'll show you in a second, I'll flip through a deck of cards like this, okay, and say to you, just got to tilt it more so you can see it in the camera. Just remember any card that you saw. About 80% of the people out there, well, are going to have seen the same card. Oh, just now on the floor. Okay. So before I reveal that I know what card that person was thinking of, I'll say, okay, so I had you just think of a card. You know, I want you to hold that card in your head, that card that you were just thinking of. That's not what happened, though. I didn't have you just think of a card. What I did was I went through the cards and you happened to see the two of hearts. And maybe you didn't. Maybe you saw a different card. But a lot of you, it'll be the two of hearts. So when you remember the trick later, you're going to use that information that you heard over the information that you saw. All right. And that is a confirmation bias. Cognitive dissonance, also a big one. Magicians might create a situation where the audience experiences conflicting information or perceptions that lead to a state of cognitive dissonance. So like in the confusion that follows, the magician can introduce some surprising element. All right. Here's a great one. I'll show you, watch the ring. It'll actually jump from one finger to the other and back again. You ready? Here it goes. Watch, jump back. You saw it go, didn't you? Now, you saw that I moved my hand over here because there is an effect that television does or your computer screen where you can be watching the entire screen all at the same time, making a magic effect completely different. In person, I can do this, and maybe it worked for you this time. Maybe you saw what I did. But in person, that'll work 99.9% of the time. It looks like that ring jumped from one finger to another and then back again. It didn't. It's on the same finger the entire time. Okay. Now hopefully you're sitting there going, no, it wasn't. Something happened. Okay. But if I go like this, it looks like it's jumping, but what I'm really doing is that. Okay. So it really looks like that ring jumps. But if you start paying attention to the tips of my fingers instead of the ring, all of a sudden you start to see something weird happen where the fingers change lengths. If you start watching my fingernails when I do the trick, you start to notice that something's wrong, but the focus is on the ring. So therefore you're seeing the ring move. So that is a great example of cognitive dissonance. I've got another one for you as well, with 3 predictions. Oh, okay. Let's see. Everybody's able to write in at least answers. So we can do it this way, where you can write in your answer. Okay. So if you would like to be the first person to think of something, just type yes in the comments real quick. All right, perfect. So Bruce, what I want you to do, Bruce, is I want you to think of your, let's say, your favorite restaurant. Don't type it in yet, okay? But I want you to think of your favorite restaurant, and I am going to make a prediction here of what I believe it is going to be. All right. So prediction made. I'm going to fold that up. And let's see what's in view. I want to put this down somewhere you can see it. Okay. I'll put it right here on, nope. A little bit more. I'll put it right over here on the table. All right. There's the first prediction. It is written. It is done. So Bruce, what was it? What was it that you were thinking of? What restaurant was it? The perk. Yes, exactly. That's one. All right. So who wants to be second and think of something else for me? Oh, I'm not going to tilt the camera back up because I don't want that to go out of you. So who's going to be second and think of something for me? I know I saw somebody say yes right after Bruce, but I missed it and I didn't see what they said. So a second person? Okay.
Tina said yes.
Tina, thank you, Tina. So Tina, what I want you to do, let's see. Oh, I got it. Tina, we'll have you think of a number from 1 to 1,000. Okay. So I am going to make my my prediction here of a number from 1 to 1,000. Okay, here's thinking of it. Okay, I think I've got it. All right, got it written down. And I'll put it down on the table also. Okay, so that's the second one. Tina, tell everyone what number it was where you think that you thought of. And while that's happening, I'm going to need just one more person who is going to help me with this. Okay, so one more person who's going to help me with this. Oh, okay. Wes. Okay, great. Wes. So what I want you to do, Wes, is I want you to think of the greatest magician that you've ever seen. Don't write it out yet. I am going to make my prediction. Wes, I'm just, hold on a second. Forgive me. I'm crossing that out. I'm not trusting that that is going to be correct. And I'm going to write something different here. Okay. All right, good. Yeah. It's not the one crossed out. It would actually be the second one. Wes, who was the magician that you thought of? Penn and Teller. I love Penn and Teller. That's awesome. So perfect. I've got 3 predictions I want to show you, and let's go ahead and see how we did here. Okay. First one was Bruce, I think. I told him to think of a restaurant. He thought of the Perk. I'll move up here so you can see. Okay. The second one, I told Tina to think of any number from 1 to 1,000. And Tina thought of the number 999. Yes, that would have worked if she got a little devilish, but it's 999. And the last one was the magician. Unfortunately, this is tough, right? Me reading minds across the internet. I at first thought you were going to say me, but clearly it's not me because I got this one wrong, but I had written Copperfield. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Now, that trick is also using the same concept of cognitive dissonance. And you saw the whole time exactly what I did. You saw exactly what you didn't see what I was writing, but you're seeing here with these 3 pieces of paper exactly what I wrote. Yeah, with this crowd, it's always going to be Penn and Teller. I don't know, you guys. With a live audience, I can nail that. All right. So anyway, so cognitive dissonance. And then there's also expectation management. Okay. Now, this is something that we run into a lot. But as magicians, we play with the audience's expectations all the time. Set up an expectation and then subvert it. You can create moments of astonishment. It can involve making the audience expect one outcome and then delivering another. It also helps us get out of trouble all the time. okay? Magicians don't tell you what they're going to do for a very good reason, because we don't have to. Some tricks do, and then I've seen tricks even where they say, most magicians don't tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you in advance what I'm going to do, right? But I'll give you an example. This is a recovery if I ran into an issue, okay? Doing a card trick, and I say, boom, there it is, your card, the two of hearts, and the person says, nope, not my card. And I'm like, okay, now I'm really actually stuck. I really actually messed up the trick. So do me a favor, somebody type a card, a name of a card. It's going to be their card instead of the two of hearts. But, you know, yeah, not the two of hearts. Any other card, somebody just real quick type one in there. 7 of diamonds. I'd go seven of diamonds? Are you serious? It was the 7 of diamonds. Hold on a second here. That rings a bell. I can't think of why exactly. But you said the 7, you sure? It was the 7 of diamonds? All right. Now I realize what it is that I'm thinking of. You see, the 7 of diamonds is actually a pretty special card to me. And I always keep one card down here. Let's see if I can reach it in my pocket. Right there like that. The 7 of diamonds. Okay, so luckily, because I didn't tell people how that trick was going to end, when I reveal the wrong card, they think I messed up. And in that case, they're absolutely right. I did. But it doesn't matter because we have outs. This happens a lot in the real world. Product launches, commercials, they show you what you want to see. Okay, you never see, except for medical commercials. Those are the best. And if you find yourself sleeping while driving, if they didn't have to say that, they would not be saying that. So the law can help us a little bit. Maybe this medication is not for you if you find yourself sleeping while driving. Yeah, it's a good indication. But other products, they don't do that. They don't warn us. They don't tell us what is going to happen. So hold on one second. Sorry about that. Okay, so you'll see only the best stuff. You see happy people, the product working, you know, you'll never see some Sharpie commercial where they take the cap off and the whole internal piece comes out with it. And they go, oh, crap. And then they have to put it back together. It's never going to be in the commercial. It happened to me actually on stage. Guy got permanent ink all over his hands. But anyway, it happens. But they're not going to show that in the commercial, of course. All right. So that is expectation management. And you guys can use it as well. All right. So if you'd like to get a really nice holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it may be, gift this season from your spouse, start telling them now how incredibly excited you are. Let's just say it's Christmas in this example. So, you know, oh, I am so excited for Christmas. Oh my goodness. Like I love Christmas. I love getting gifts and I just can't wait to see what happens on Christmas Day. They are going to be returning whatever it was and getting something better because you're managing the expectations. So that is expectation management. And then dual reality. Dual reality is really a magician's concept, but it does happen in real life. You can go to, let's say, Disney with the family and have an absolutely terrible experience. Everything went bad, but another family is going to be going, that was fantastic. They were there the same day. You know, how does this type of thing work? It happens. Companies do it to you with VIP status. You know, if you go and you're going to get on an airplane, say everybody with, you know, small children or disabilities, which I'd like to argue is a disability, then, our elite VIP status, and then our VIP status, and then anybody who has more than 10,000 points, and then section A, section B, and before you know it, you're like the last person there. And they're like, if you're in section Q, you can get on the plane now. Thanks, finally. So your experience is different than someone else that did the same thing. Here is a good magic example of that. You can see, there we go. You can see that this basically says applesauce, not spelled right, but it says applesauce. Maybe it's backwards for you, but that's what it says, right? APULSOSS. Watch it very carefully. I'm going to keep the same piece of paper as I back away. And now, if you have a big enough screen, you can see it says applause. Same piece of paper. All right. So that is dual reality. If I had somebody on stage and I showed them the piece of paper and said, what does this say? They're going to read it as applesauce. And I turn and show it to the audience. Everybody's laughing because they know it says applause. So that would be dual reality, which is another way that magicians and, of course, real life, you're facing some changes, some differences. There's also, of course, suggestion and influence that falls under that too. I talked about social media earlier. Suggestion and influence. The magicians may subtly suggest ideas or influence decisions without the audience being fully aware of what's happening. It can be used in mentalism routines. It's like reading minds, where the magician appears to read a mind or predict choices. So the trick that I just showed you earlier with the 3 different predictions, all right, that would fall into that category. And then it would be very difficult now without having audio to show you a similar example, but I'll give you an idea real quick. If I wanted to have you pick a certain card, okay, I could say to you, I want you to visualize a deck of cards in your hands, okay? And now what I want you to do is I want you to magically separate that deck into red in one hand and black in the other. All right, so magically, boom, that deck separates. You have all red cards here and all black cards here. Now, hand me one of those piles. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to drive you to the 8 of diamonds, okay? So hand me one of those piles. And so if the person hands me the pile that was the black cards, I go, okay, I'm going to throw that away, which leaves you with a pile of reds. Now, magically, you're going to separate those cards until you only have the face cards, Jack, Queen, and King in one hand, and number cards, Ace through 10 in the other, okay? And I want you to take either one of those 2 piles and toss it up in the air, okay? So which pile are you tossing up in the air? And they say, the Ace through 10, all right? And I go, perfect, the Ace through 10, watch this. I grab them all out of the air just like that. Now I've got the Ace through 10. Now I want you to look at them. So you can see how no matter which way you go, no matter what you say, we're able to use that to go in the direction that we want to go. So that's using suggestion or influence. This happens a lot in sales. If I'm selling to you a product, let's say this. I just started an AI agency with the very first ever conversational AI that can actually do sales over the phone. And what happens is if I talk to a new business and they are interested in the AI, I will say to them, okay, well, listen, how many, so let's say they're selling a product. Okay, we can do this, but how many do you have on hand? Do you have enough product? Because I don't want this to work so well that it's putting you guys behind. Okay, so do you have enough product on hand? You know, what is your goal? Your goal is only selling 3,000 units a month. I don't know that we can work with somebody who's only looking for that low of volume. Usually this is something that actually will generate a lot more volume. So if it's only 3,000 units, I'm not sure if that's going to work. Okay, I'm reversing the sales pitch on them. I'm making them beg me to work with them instead of the other way around. So that is definitely using suggestion and influence. Memory manipulation. Memory manipulation is magicians that use techniques to manipulate how the audience remembers events. This can involve introducing false memories. I was talking about this earlier, or subtly altering perceptions to enhance a magical effect. So like I did with a riffle earlier through the cards, and then I told you, think, okay, I want you to think of a card. That is, you know, exactly, I mean, you didn't think of a card, you saw it in the deck, but I'm telling you that you thought of it. So memory manipulation. One of my favorite ones of those is how I learned, this is probably the first time that I had this experience with memory manipulation, was learning the Balducci levitation, this levitation that I love. Let me see if I can turn this down a little bit. Okay. All right. So you can see my feet. Okay. Watch, here it goes. Hold on one second. All right. Now, when I turn around, I look back at the audience who was watching me do that. I say, how high did I go? All right. And by putting my hands out like that, how high did I go? That's what they do later when they tell people what they just saw. They go, you wouldn't believe it, this guy came up off the ground. And they're doing what I did. Similarly, if I want somebody to cut a deck of cards a certain way, I will say to them, the deck sitting here, I'll say to them, okay, what I want you to do is just take the cards and cut them anywhere you want to. And I'll do that with my hand. They will never remember that I did that with my hand. But I'm trying to prevent them from taking the deck of cards and cutting it into 7 different piles or something like that. I just want them to cut it once, and I want them to put the other pile right here, and it works 100% of the time. So we do that to people all the time as well. I would say that eyewitness testimony is pretty good at falling into that category, because it might not be intentional memory manipulation that happens, but people will absolutely recall different things that they saw when they all watched the same exact event. All right, so this is kind of like we're doing that to ourselves with memory manipulation. But then it happens a lot of times too that people confess to something they didn't do. And how do you get to that point where you had nothing to do with this crime, and here you are going, okay, yeah, I guess I did do that, but it happens. So that is memory manipulation in the same way. Visual illusions or ambiguity, obviously, visual illusions magicians are using all the time. Matter of fact, show you something here. Okay, so I put a little bit of water inside of this bucket, and I'll pour it out. Like this here, okay? All right, so what you're seeing is hopefully a container about half filled with water, right? However, if I cover it up, pull away the scarf, It's now empty, all except for a silk handkerchief. All right. So it's all there. It's just visual manipulation. All right. You can probably guess. And in most cases with magic, if you are guessing how something's working and your answer in your head is complicated, you're probably wrong. Honestly, 99 times out of 100, when you're watching a magician do something, the simplest solution is really exactly what happened. Hold on, I'm going to lose my light that I just brought in. Sorry, 1 second. Whoop. And my audio. Change my light real quick here. It'll just sit. Okay, I have no idea if you can still see me because I was just staring into my light. I can't see anything. Okay, all right. So anyway, that is visual manipulation. And one of my favorite examples of visual manipulation would be from World War II, I believe it was, when there was a magician, Jasper Mascaline, I think his last name was, and the military hired him, and he's known as the magician that won a war, because what he did was create phantom armies, and other places he was able to make it look like there was nothing happening, when really, you know, he's focusing their attention over here and the real stuff is going on over here. There's a great documentary, maybe somebody probably knows the name and can put it in there, about that, but it is worth seeing. Fantastic. How the biggest way probably that magic was ever used in real life to change how an outcome may have happened. But anyway, so that is pretty much everything that I've got. So this is your warning. I think it was it? Becky. Yes, there you are, Becky. That's your 2-second warning.
That's good enough. Okay, some of this stuff that you explained right in front of me, I still didn't get, but how did you turn a bucket of water into a dry white red scarf? Or am I not allowed to ask that?
Very well, thank you.
I saw you step in the water and then it was gone.
I wanted to reveal a few things because I felt that it was necessary, but at the same time, I wanted to leave a little mystery and not reveal everything.
Sure. I'm trying to, there I am. Okay, I am back. I was thinking in the very beginning, you talked about misdirection, and I was thinking about, and every skeptic has certain areas that they really go, and mine is supplements, brain supplements, this supplement. And I think the misdirection is how they talk about what it will do for you. For example, with a lot of supplements, I got to look at my notes here, and my handwriting is terrible. This will support the immune system, or this, my favorite is this will support prostate health, which gives me a visual that nobody should have. But,
yeah, I'm supposed to take this orally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a type of misdirection.
Yes.
Really, it's telling you, and people go, but it'll do this. Yeah, and so okay.
It's also pattern recognition because you know, there are supplements and medicines and whatnot that do work. And so we get used to the fact that when they say it works, and you know that it does. And so that's how we can be manipulated by companies that are, you know, less than honest. Also, because medicine is so heavily regulated and supplements aren't, they use that to their advantage as well. So the pattern that we see of medicines being so strict, we take that assumption over to the other side as well. Gotcha. To supplements as well.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, a couple questions are starting to pop up. Somebody said, the simplest answer is eluding me like that handkerchief.
Yeah, it's the problem is that the threads of the handkerchief, they're all out there. You just have to reaccumulate them. They're just flying around in the air. Once you reaccumulate them, then it comes back. That's all. So simplest answer. And no, I feel like I revealed enough that I'm going to leave the reveals where they are, unless there's some crucial reason. So if somebody can really think hard about a crucial reason that they need to know something so that they don't get deceived by scammers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, I always have a little bit of trouble with the scrolling function on the chat. So good question here. As a magician, what advice would you give to people to help them resist cons, flim flams, that sort of thing? And I'm thinking of something in particular that every year, especially around Christmas, we get information from on TV about how to resist the grandma I need help phone calls and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I'm making this question way too long. And it's like telling people most recently, you're in Florida now, but most recently there was a rash of car thefts. This is a kind of flim flam, I guess. Rash of car thefts in Delaware, and it happened because people started their cars to warm them up and then went in their houses. So they left the car. So I don't even know what I'm asking, Brian.
So,
I'm sorry here.
I think I have somewhat of some help with that. One, you have to realize what the magician, or in this case, the thief, is doing. It's pattern recognition. So they see people run out, start their car, run back in the house. That creates the opportunity for them. So don't follow those patterns. And a great example also is when they're creating, when somebody is creating a bug to try to get as many people as possible, a Trojan horse or whatever it may be that they're creating on the computer, and they want to get it spread out to as many people as possible. They will test it against the top 1, 2, or maybe 3 antivirus programs, usually just Norton, just the top 1, because if they can get past that, then they can get to 90% of the people. Pattern recognition. People use that antivirus because they feel like it's the best one, right? But being the best one, being the biggest one, is a vulnerability for them. So, so not following those patterns. And this is off topic, but I will also suggest that this is how we get to live vibrant, long lives. Okay, I'm putting long in air quotes for a reason. And that is that if you do the same thing every day, you lose all those days in your memory. So stop being a pattern monkey, like just following. If you get down really low in your living room and you can see trails across your carpet because you walk the same exact path every day, stop walking that path. Start thinking about it. Start going around the other way around the couch, something different. And then much on a bigger scale, do things like, it's important to save money, of course, right? But do things, have experiences, because the more different experiences that you have through your life, the more you're going to remember those days. And the more days you remember, the longer a life you have. So that's from a different talk, but nonetheless.
and be less predictable.
Yes, be less predictable. Stop following the masses. And much more likely, there is also the safety in numbers. So safety in numbers does not work with anything that is viral. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to hide from COVID or a Trojan horse virus, safety in numbers is not going to work for you, right? But if you're trying to hide from being pickpocketed on the street, well, that's not viral, that's one-on-one. So therefore, you're much better off in a crowd.
Gotcha. You did a very good job of answering my garbled question.
I'm trying.
That, and I'm trying to scroll down now. Okay, from Ed Gracely. I've seen the magician's choice like you were using to drive us to the Seven of Diamonds, but getting down that far requires 2 or 3 more steps. Won't people figure out what you were doing? I guess the question there is, do people figure out what your tricks are if they're not magicians?
So that's where pattern recognition works on your side versus mine. If I say, pick one of the piles, and they go, okay, I'll pick up the black. And I go, okay, so now you have the black. Okay, let's separate it into number cards versus face cards. Pick one of the piles. And now they pick the face cards. And I say, okay, that leaves me with the number cards. Then I say, I'm going to separate them, ace through 5 and 6 through 10. Pick one of the piles. And they say they pick 6 through 10. And I go, okay, since you picked 6 through 10, that's too obvious, right? So we need to break the pattern to be effective in that regard. That's why the first time I said, pick one of the piles. The second time I said, throw one of the packets up in the air. Third time, I don't use that method in my show. So I don't have an exact process for it. But the third time I would do something totally different. I would say to them, okay, now you've got ace through 5 here, 6 through 10 right there. I want you to take a pretend lighter and burn one of those packs of cards. Let's say that. Now, which one did you burn? The ace through 5 or the 6 through 10? Now I'm still going for the 7 of hearts, I think, or 7 of diamonds, I think it was, whatever it was. So if they burned the ace through 5, that's great. That's obvious in their mind that leaves the other pile. If they burned this one, I would say, okay, great. The 2 of those cards were completely eliminated, leaving only 3 left in my hand, and you can go on that way. Just make it different each time so that they don't recognize the pattern.
So be less predictable.
Yes, be less predictable. Exactly.
There you go. Okay.
RJ had said, or is RG, sorry, said that he had a question just easier to say.
Yeah, is that Bob Glickman? Is that you? Wes, can you unmute Bob Glickman? In case it's him. Otherwise, I don't know how to
Okay, can you hear me? This is Robert. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Given that we're heading into a very contentious political season, what do you see as a professional magician in deception that you can tell us to keep an eye out for, or what politicians do that we might not see ourselves?
Sure. Definitely what I mentioned about social media is huge. I think that social media is going to be the real winner this time with the election. They will be pushing, well, if it's Facebook, they're going to be pushing a demographic, oh my goodness, democratic. As soon as I said demographic, I couldn't get the other word, a democratic standpoint. So if somebody posts something that's a Republican slant, it's not going to be seen by practically anybody. So keep that in mind. And of course, the news stations now do the same thing. There is no news anymore. There is simply ways to sell advertising. And so unfortunately they fell into that. As a magician, let's see, specifically as a magician, I don't think I can think of any perfect examples other than like the pretty much all of the things that I just said. If you keep those things in mind, misdirection, pattern recognition, confirmation bias, they're going to use all of it, so you definitely want to keep an eye on that. I found it absolutely fascinating when Trump came into the picture, that he was so different than everyone else. And I believe that he kind of used the rule of thirds, in that if a third of the people love you, a third of the people hate you, and there's always a third of the people that don't care no matter what you do. But the stronger you create that hate, the stronger you create the love. Pepsi versus Coke, Android versus the evil empire of Apple. So you can see, which side I stand on that, right? But the more one side creates hatred or love, it makes the other side more powerful. And Trump, I think, did that phenomenally well by dividing everyone, and therefore getting more people out to vote, so that we're that in love with him that he said he could walk out onto Main Street and shoot somebody and he'd still win. Like, it probably would have helped, honestly, just dividing that so much. Hopefully that helps with an answer, because I can't think of specifically as a magician.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, we have a question from Mark Sis, who's been a longtime supporter of ours. There was a section in a city in Europe that had a bad pickpocket problem, so they put up a billboard warning people, but they had to take it down because the billboard made the problem worse. And Mark did not mention the city or the country, so
that's awesome. That so I believe, without knowing anything about that story, if it were me as a pickpocket, which I'm not and I don't do so, but I would use that as the deception. So if you create a disturbance, because people are heightened awareness, you create a disturbance, they are that much more likely to, all of a sudden just boom, be laser focused on that. You could probably steal their belt and their wedding band, because they're so laser focused on what is happening over there, So making people nervous isn't going to be the answer. Telling people where to put their stuff that makes it harder for the pickpockets is going to be much more helpful.
Interesting. Okay, and I just noticed that Mark said he'll paste the answer after he guesses, but Mark, I'm going to try to unmute you and see. Wes, can you okay, Mark, you should be able to talk.
I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the answer was, and I pasted it in there. The reason they had to take it down was because when the people would see that it was a bad area on the billboard, the first thing they would do was check their person to see if their wallet was in their pocket or where it was, thereby tracking exactly where their wallet was.
They might as well have pointed,
increasing the crime rate.
Yep. And we do little things like that. That is a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Mark, because we do things like that all the time without being aware of it. Totally just tapping your wallet. I heard a comedian say the one time that he says, anytime I go anywhere with a friend, he says, I'm worried that there's pickpockets around, I always tap my friend's wallet instead of mine, and like something to that effect. It was a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, we all do it. And it's surprising how incredibly easy it is to deceive people in that regard, to especially when they're nervous. Panic causes death. If you can control panic, you can control a lot more situations. So when all of a sudden something happens over here and you can be aware of it, but you have to still physically be aware of what's going on over here as well. And magicians are really good at controlling that. We use our eyes to control people, where people look all the time. There's my coin, speaking of looking for things. Like what I did earlier with the French drop. When I teach it, a lot of times I do this. I tell people to do that, okay? Because I'm looking here everyone is looking here. Watch the difference, right?
Yeah.
You know where the coin is. It's the same exact move, but you know where the coin is because I'm looking here. So it's so easy just to get people to look up there when you do the trick, you know? So same thing, just you have to be aware, change your patterns, stop tapping your wallet, you know, start putting a fake wallet in your pocket, tap that. Have
And
one that
those
just
kind of-
says, haha, gotcha.
Right.
I
And
don't
those
know.
kind of things, sure. And those kind of things we do without thinking. You know, you don't even realize
Yes.
you're tapping it. I can imagine. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and that's something with magic that is very helpful as a magician. You think about every single little movement that you make, every, you know, twitch of a finger, every little thing is important in directing people's attention. And so there's entire, you know, lectures and books on simple little movements. This is the reason why Copperfield is so good, is that they will work on, like, say, his flying illusion. They will work on how his right foot leaves the ground as he takes off to fly for days. Like little tiny little things like that. He is a detail king. And just to make it more realistic, you know? And so we don't see those things because we don't see what it looks like when he didn't practice that long on it.
I had no idea. I always knew I couldn't do magic. I had no idea how exhausting.
Yeah, it really is a way different way of thinking
Yeah.
when it comes to little details like that. But it really is just mimicking how it would really look. You hear magicians talk about that a lot. Well, if you know, if you were to actually reach across and pick up the coin, how would that really look? You know, and so we'll say that. And why are you holding the coin like this? When, if you ever were in the grocery store and they said, that's $2.50, and you were like, okay, there's the $2 and here's the 50 cents, that would be really strange, right? So I teach that if the coin was sitting on a hard surface and you go to pick it up, finally you end up picking it up like that, that makes a lot more sense because it was hard to pick it up. You know, it was hard to pick it up the other way. So you have to have a logical reason for everything that you do. And pickpockets and, you know, scammers of any sort will always do that. Have a logical reason for what they're doing, even if what they're doing is illogical. Holding a coin like this is completely illogical. Okay, but what I said
Yes,
to
it
you
is.
guys was, like, I held it so that you could see it, and this is what I do. I hold it like that so I can spin it. And so people think that's why I'm holding it like this, so that I can show you the coin and spin it with my finger. Okay, really, it's because that's how it needs to be in order to do the French drop.
Interesting. Interesting. And that was a very interesting comment about David Copperfield. Some of the questions that came through, and I haven't read them all because every time I try to scroll, it goes, which might be my computer. It might be my computer. But do you have any anecdotes, and I don't want to put you on the spot, about any of the other really famous magicians, you know, Penn and Teller or Randy?
Yeah. Just a funny one about Copperfield. I was in Las Vegas at Magic Live, which is a big magic convention, and Chris Kenner, who is Copperfield's executive manager, has a party at his house during Magic Live pretty much every time they have it, every year, and is such a nice guy that he invites people into his home. And so I was able to get on that list and get there, and Copperfield was there. And so, of course, Copperfield is standing there, and he's got, you know, just a crowd of people standing by him, talking to him, and magicians who, you know, are new magicians and have never met him, and like just so excited about all of that, you know. And this one kid walks up, I say kid, I don't know, 19 to 21 years old is my guess, right? Walks up to the circle and he's a little nervous and he's like, you know, he's like meeting Copperfield for the first time. And Copperfield turned and greeted everyone who came into the circle, which was super nice also. And so Copperfield turned and looked at him and just like kind of gave him a nod. And the kid said, hi, I'm John, I'm part-time magician. And Copperfield goes, "Ah, nice to meet you. I'm David. I'm full-time." It was just great.
That
It
is
was
great.
such a funny moment. But yeah, I mean, he also, because he's so influential, people want to show him their tricks all the time so that they can, say, Copperfield said, "Wow," about this trick, So he will very intentionally stand there and watch and keep his mouth shut, just nod, and smile and not say anything, which I think is hysterical. But anyway, yeah. That the only, Copperfield is a super nice guy. I grew up knowing, well, I knew David Blaine for a long time because before he was famous, he and I went to Tannen's Magic Camp together, which was a camp for kids that's
Oh
all
my heavens,
magic.
there's magic camp.
Yep, there used to be two of them that I know of. One of them was in California. They closed down. I went to it a couple of times and got to meet some great magicians there. But Copperfield had gone to Tannen's even, but Tannen's has been going on for a long time. And so I taught classes with David Blaine there and everything. And so that was awesome. And then the only one I think, a super nice guy also, the only one I think that's really messing it up and is going to have a hard time on his way back down is Chris Angel, unfortunately. I hear too many stories about ego and it's no good. I like it when people are personable, but if you do meet a celebrity, don't think they're a jerk because they don't give you the time of day. It happens to them 500 times a day.
Yes.
So it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's got to be exhausting. So I have a little anecdote about Randy. We saw him a couple times and he really seemed to like kids. He was wonderful with kids. He would give them his full attention and do a couple little things and sign an autograph. And, it was a very small sample of time that we all had with him when he was here, but that really touched me.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. A lot of magicians got to where they are today because somebody paid a little bit of attention to them. Some magician gave them the time of day and as a kid. And so definitely that was my experience as well. And oddly enough, and I think this is fitting, my favorite magic teacher as a kid is a magician who's still in Johnstown. And he's my favorite magician and magic teacher because he wouldn't teach me anything. He would always say, "You're really not ready for that yet." Or "I don't think that's your style," or whatever. He wouldn't teach me anything. And it motivated me. I had to go and find the solutions, the answers in books. And I ended up coming up with my own moves that I thought was what he was doing and everything. And it's probably why I'm a magician now, that he wouldn't teach me anything. And I don't have the heart to do it. I can't do it to anybody. I can't, like a kid comes up, I'm always willing to teach them a trick. I usually teach them the French drop, so that they have a trick that they can get them started. I was doing an event for kids with cancer here in Orlando, and I walked up to a lady pushing a kid in a stroller who was probably 7 or 8 years old, but I said, "Hey buddy, would you like to see a magic trick?" And he goes, "I love magic. Yes, please." His mom looks at me and says, "He's blind." And I was like, okay, cognitive dissonance. Like, what now? So I taught him how to do the French drop by manipulating his hands, putting his hands in the right positions, and got him to the point that he could do it. And he was absolutely thrilled. And it was so cool because he couldn't see what he was doing, but he could feel what he was doing. Yeah,
that's very cool. That is very cool. And for any of us, there's a lot of power in figuring things out and solving our own problems. But it's nice when somebody says, "Let me get you started."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did. So Let me see here. Okay, it's just somebody saying, gotta go now, goodbye. Brian, thank you so much.
My
for taking
pleasure.
your time out of what I know is a very busy schedule. There are so many ways that we can be deceived: intellectual, emotional, mental, physical, and you've shown us some things that I never thought of. So that is wonderful. A special thanks to Mike LeWitt, who found Brian for us.
I've known Dr. LeWitt for a long time. He helped me with my kids.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
yeah,
that
absolutely.
amazing? I thought he just went on the internet and Googled and, played around.
No,
He had somebody in mind. So that's
hopefully I'm
great.
not breaking some nepotism rule or something by telling you that
Yeah.
story.
No, not at all. We're always happy. And a couple other things. Somebody on the chat thanked me personally for this meeting. And I want to make it really clear that I'm the most visible person because I'm on camera, but this is a group effort. And what I do is probably the easiest part. The technical part, the support behind the scenes is much harder. So thank you to the team, not my team, the team. We have a couple events, and if you're lucky, Brian, you'll get on our mailing list and you'll get something every month.
I'd love it. Absolutely.
But in January, we have Dr. Paul Halpern, who's a local professor, and he has spoken 5 or 6 times for our group over the years. His new book is The Allure of the Multiverse, which will be available in early 2024. In February, we're going to have Robert Hicks talking about 19th century astronomy. And we don't have anybody in March just yet. In April, which seems like a long way away, we will probably have Rob Palmer, who you should see his column on Skeptical Inquirer. And at this point, he is planning to talk about what's the harm in psychics. And most of us in this group don't really go to psychics, but we need some language and a script to talk about people who think that they are a good idea, or at least that they're harmless. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much. And a shout out to Western Central PA, where Brian and I both grew up.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you, Michael, for bringing me in for this too.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Oh, I want to point out something else. Often during a meeting, I always watch the number of participants, and generally over the course of the talk and during the Q&A, we lose people slowly but steadily, and 1 or 2 this meeting.
Awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That goes right up there with my favorite ever quote from a teacher from doing a show at a school. She said, "This is the first assembly we've ever had where nobody asked to go to the bathroom." I'll take it.
This is the same thing. This is the same thing. Okay, and now the comments are coming in. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much. Goodbye,
My
everybody.
pleasure.
We will see you in January.